For more on Ukraine's incursion into Russia and promise of an appropriate response from Moscow, global affairs analyst Ononuju joins me on the world now. So Ononuju, we're hearing that more than 100 Russian soldiers have been captured during Ukraine's incursion into Kursk in the second week of this operation in Russian territory. What is now known as perhaps the most significant incursion into the country since Moscow's full-scale invasion began. What do you make of Ukraine's audacity to attack Russia?
You used the right word. It's an audacious move by Ukraine, but you also need to look at it from multiple angles. One, Ukraine does not have what it takes to sustain and to hold this territory it has now gone into in Susa. What I believe, this is probably a diversion, a distraction for something major, but no, Ukraine doesn't have the capacity to launch any major attack anywhere. And so I could also put it into Ukraine trying to make a dash for some Russian territory in reaction to what Zelensky said some time ago, that he would present a proper plan in his negotiation presentations to President Putin. So it may be I have some land, give up this, and I give you that. But I think that is too small compared to the vast territory of Ukraine currently in Russian hands. They're just too many. And another thing I could also think there is maybe they're looking to try to impress the Republicans who are already sold on the idea, as Trump said, he will end the war. And he is within the first 24 hours after he's sworn in. And you can really see Ukraine is in a very difficult place. You know, never mind the rhetorics from the US, there's nothing in it. What they have done there is not sustainable. Russians could. If they bring up forces elsewhere, which I don't think they will, I believe Russia has enough reserves to rush to Kursk to actually take back Susa. So I don't think this on a larger scale will actually undermine or change the dynamics of the war so far. But the war is over for all I know, and Ukraine has lost too many men. I believe this war, as I said to your network listeners last year, was a wrong thing.
I hear you clearly.
Been there, and that's the reason why a lot of us are not happy for the mistake of NATO and the Americans.
But you have to give it to Zelensky, who appears to have transitioned quite well from a civilian president to a war commander. A state of emergency has now been declared in a second Russian region, but Russia is saying any prospect of peace talks is now on a long pause. What's the implication of this on peace and conflict resolution in that region?
What Russians have said are very simple. If Ukraine thinks it could use the dash into Susa to force Russia to say, okay, some part of Kursk is held, let us exchange. No, Russia will put it on the long haul and fight to clear Ukraine out of where they are right now in Susa before it will even agree to come to the tables to talk. So it will not allow Ukraine the pleasure of trying to negotiate on the table with its incursion into Kursk. No, that will not be an advantage to Ukraine. That's what Russia means. For me, I think all those flubas you see from Ukraine are just not there. You shouldn't have gone into this in the first place. No matter what you call Zelensky, Zelensky is a loser. He took his country into a war that's avoidable. And look at where they are. They've lost men. No analyst will even talk about the kind of people he will bring. He doesn't have people. The reserves are gone. The people are dead. Ukraine has been erased to what it should not be for what I believe is avoidable. This has been a very wrong adventure for Ukraine. Well, I don't know who you blame. I think you should have to go back to 2014, the revolution, and then the crisis that forced the Americans to say they're coming to do the sea drills in Crimea could now force Russia to take back Crimea, which has been part of Russia since 1775, when Russia took Crimea from the Ottomans, and it was only ceded to Ukraine in 1954 by the Ukrainian and president of the Russian Federation. So at the end of the Soviet Union experiment, Crimea should normally come back to Ukraine, but no, to Russia. But no, Russia still allowed it to stay there, pretending as if Ukraine still remained its boutique creation. But no, and that was why the Americans tried coming in with the naval drill first in Crimea, which forced the Ukrainian, the Russian reaction in taking back Crimea, and then the attempt at a military drill, could now force the war. So the war, I believe, was all a reaction to American intentions in Ukraine. And I believe those intentions are avoidable.
It is a hard pill to swallow to completely absorb Russia's blame in what has happened in that region in the past years. But let's get back to what's happening currently. It would seem that Ukraine is ready for what will happen next. We've seen the country now relocating some of its citizens away from the border cities. Analysts, however, say that Russia is expected to bomb at least one city and deal a painful blow to its neighbor in the coming days. But let's talk about what the West is reporting. The fact that Ukraine has better intelligence, including from Western allies, better trained soldiers, and that it also has a command structure that is more efficient than Russia's. Do you think things might escalate fast, considering we're talking about Russia, a country controlling one of the world's biggest arsenal of nuclear weapons?
Again, you're talking about what the West are reporting, and you're saying it's a hard thing to swallow. Listen, the fundamental reason for this crisis is the West trying to advance towards the East. If they had kept the promise they gave to Mr. Gorbachev that as they gave up Eastern Germany, that the West will not try to advance NATO towards the East, towards Russian borders. If they had been kept, we wouldn't be here. If the West, the NATO, the Americans had respected the 240-year-old doctrine that had kept Cuba away from Russian missiles. That's all. If he had respected that doctrine that says allow everybody to keep the areas of his influence free of the other people bringing weapons on. If America could not tolerate Russian missiles on the Cuban coast, why should they think that it's okay for them to continue to move towards the East? This is the beginning of this. So nothing like anything had to swallow. That's what it is. If we had respected that doctrine, I do not think we will be inside this crisis. And that's why I told you this crisis was totally unnecessary.
Well,
so
let's say
just where it is. Whether you like it or not, a lot of people are saying the same thing.
Let's say that I buy your ideology. Let's say I buy your ideology for a minute, and you're saying this is perhaps a proxy war, the West advancing to the East. They have achieved something significant. This surprise incursion into Russia constitutes perhaps the first time a foreign army has invaded that country since 1941. And even though Ukraine is saying it isn't marching on to Moscow, but with all of the Western allies and support it's getting, do you think that this can escalate further beyond the temporary measure on Ukraine's side if it has all of the past support from the West?
It will go nowhere. The West knows it has lost. It has violated the Monroe Doctrine and it has lost. It's going nowhere. This war, Russia has managed it politely. It has not escalated. It has not used the weapons that it has that could have actually had devastated Ukraine. No. What it has done is very simple. Destroy Ukraine into such degraded form that it will be no use for anyone. And they've achieved it. So no one is going to go anywhere. Everybody already knows the war ended a long time ago. What you're seeing now as skirmishes towards negotiations. If Ukraine thinks it can drive in, hold some territory, and then use that during that negotiation, Russia is telling you no, it will not. Russia will go drive them out of Kursk, and then after securing Sudzha, it will tell you, okay, you want to negotiate, let us negotiate. That's what's going on. Nothing new. So don't even think about it. The war ended a long time ago.
All right. New pages being open each new day. We'll see how it all plays out subsequently. Global Affairs Analyst Ononuju, thank you so much for talking to us on the news.
Thank you very much for having me.